Well, hello and welcome to AWN TableTalk. I'm Crystal Niehoff, owner and commander of Army Wife Network. On this episode of Table Talk, we're talking about homeschooling and how that fits into a military lifestyle. And today we're having some fun and giving away some AWN swag. You can win an AWN coffee mug or an AWN tote bag. Instructions for entering our giveaway are coming up in just a few moments, so stay tuned. But first, let's say hi to our panel. Welcome, Tracy Hargis and Wendy Baird-Packard.
Good morning. Good morning. Glad to be here. We are so excited that you, the viewer, could join us today at Table Talk. Would you do us a favor? If you enjoy these Table Talk chats, please be sure to like and share with your friends to get the word out about this great resource.
Hello, give us a shout out and tell us where you're watching from. And do you have a question about homeschooling for our Table Talk panel? Begin posting your questions for us now on the comment section.
Come pull up a chair. Pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, and let's share how to do military life together.
Yes. We're excited to have a special guest joining us today. She's an Army wife and homeschooling mom. Welcome to our table, Tammy Wysocki. Tammy, tell us a bit about yourself and your family.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting me to come and sit with you ladies today. So my husband and I have been married for almost 17 years, and we've spent about 16 of those in the military. We have 2 children. Our daughter is 14 and our son is 13, so I have a high schooler and a middle schooler. My kids have gone to small country schools. They've gone to city schools. They've gone to DOD schools. They've homeschooled. We've homeschooled, and we've gone back to school, and we've gone back to homeschooling. And we kind of judge it based on where we're going to be stationed and what we're going through in life at that time.
Oh, fantastic. So we're looking forward to hearing more from you in just a little bit. So welcome to the table, Tammy. We're so excited to be here. Before we move on, however, we have a question that came in previously from a viewer. And she is asking, this is from Samantha. We are going active duty next summer. My husband's current MOS has plenty of opportunity for duty station locations. So Samantha's questions are, what are your best family-oriented duty station and why?
Well, I'll chime in on this one. I think it just depends on the timing and where you go. Our best one was New York. I don't know if it was one of our first family duty stations that we had, but we were up at Fort Drum. I love the seasons there. But a lot of it has to do also with your husband's commander and how the whole unit works as a whole, whether they're family oriented or whether they're not. And that has a big difference in it right there. Because if you have a commander that's very family oriented, he'll involve families a lot in FRG and any of those things that you have within your unit. But the best thing to do is just to get involved wherever you go and just get plugged in as soon as you get there. And it'll be like one of your favorite duty stations just because you got plugged in somewhere there. And but my favorite one is here in Hawaii. So
mine too. And I think most Army posts are pretty good about creating a family atmosphere. So it's finding programs, ACS, CYS, PWOC, CWOC, all these acronyms.
yes.
But they're all programs.
YMCA.
YMCA. Is there any without an acronym?
Yeah.
MWR.
ACS.
Finally, one that didn't have an acronym, and I'm sure it has. NPC would be. Anyway, so I think that also kind of goes with just getting involved, like Tracy said. And then where, I guess the location I would look at, if I could choose, either do I want to travel and go somewhere a little further away, or do I want to stay closer to family, or is there somewhere I really wanted to, it'd be nice to live there for a while. If you get to choose, what a great opportunity.
And I've heard like some will go to Germany and they can travel a lot. They can go to Italy and all kinds of places there when they're in Germany.
Right.
So I've always kind of wanted to go there just to travel.
So awesome. And then she also wants to know some pros and cons of active duty life. So you guys have any input on that?
We were talking the other day that my husband's been active duty for 7-8 years now, and I've done more and accomplished more in those 8 years than I ever did when we weren't. The Army gave us so much ability to do things, college education, career, things like that. I think obviously the cons are that your spouse is gone a lot. They go away, and sometimes they're in training, and the military really does dictate their schedule. And that's probably the downside for us.
Right. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, I kind of agree. Go into it. I don't know that it's necessarily a downside. It's kind of a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
But it does dictate your spouse's schedule. He probably will work long days. He'll get deployed. He'll go TDY. So if you go into it, though, with a positive outlook on that and realize, okay, it's going to happen, and begin thinking, how am I going to cope with that? And you can thrive. I think we all have thrived as military spouses because we've seen the opportunity. There's opportunities to volunteer that I didn't see when I was in the civilian world. There's opportunities to get out there and become friends and connect with other spouses just like you. And so I think there's pros and cons to everything.
Of course,
to me, I've enjoyed being an Army wife.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. The opportunities are just amazing if you get out there and really get into it and get involved and allow it to forward. A lot of opportunities.
I enjoy even moving and being able to move every 2-3 years just to go somewhere different. It's almost like you get that inside you when it's about the 3rd year. You're like, I need to go somewhere else now.
Yeah, and you clean out your closets.
I'm ready to move.
You clean out your closets every 3 years. It's like, we're getting rid of that junk.
Clean those all out. It's like a blank slate every time you go somewhere else, So
True that. Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. So, well, we have a giveaway, like we mentioned earlier, that's going on, and it's going to run for the next 24 hours. So to enter, just comment below this video with your favorite homeschooling tip or advice. You will then be entered into our drawing, and winners will be contacted, and your homeschooling tip will be shared with our fans on Facebook. It's a great way to help other military families and even win some AWN swag.
Well, let's jump into our homeschooling topic today with Tammy Wysocki. Tracy's also homeschools her boys, so she'll be sharing her experiences as well. Tammy, Tracy, it's all you. I'm going to go lunch now.
Well, Tammy and Tracy, how long have you homeschooled?
I have only homeschooled for the past 2 years, and it was just because it was just a choice that we made when we were moving here. I took the advice of friends, and they said the schools here are not real good, and so I thought my kids were already in a private school where they had books, and so I finished them up in those books, and I just continued to homeschool them. So only for 2 years now.
Okay, so for us, our first time homeschooling, we homeschooled in Germany for our last year in Germany. It coincided with my husband coming home from a deployment and us PCSing before the school year ended and not knowing if we were going to get to our next duty assignment in time for that my kids would have completed the school year if the school year was already over with, if it wasn't over with. Then when we PCSed after that, they went back to public school, and then we hit middle school years, and so then we homeschooled for my daughter for her first year of middle school, and then we PCSed here, and there was no question about homeschooling. We're definitely homeschooling. And right now my daughter's in a program because she's in high school. We're doing it's an online program, and it's where she's going to get her high school diploma and her associate's degree at the same time. So she will graduate high school with an associate's degree at 17. And so that's how long we've homeschooled. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah.
Well, neat. So if you're watching, or if you watch this after we're live, tell us what led you to homeschooling and how long you've homeschooled. So, and that comes back to our next question is, what led you to homeschooling? Why did you choose to homeschool?
Go ahead.
Okay. My kids actually, my husband was deployed. My kids came home and they gave me a list of, Mom, we want to be homeschooled. Mom, we don't want to ride the school bus anymore. And Mom, we don't want to buy lunch. This was all in one day while my husband was deployed. The battery was dead on the Jeep. The whole 9 yards, you can imagine what it's like. And so I had to sit down and tackle each thing one at a time and kind of see where their emotions were and really feel out what was going on, what the underlying thing was. And then I prayed about it. I talked to my husband. Of course, he was deployed, so we did a lot of FaceTiming, trying to figure out if this was the right thing to do. And I waited till my husband was on board with it. I was on board, which I was very shocked because I was the one, when they went to kindergarten, I was so happy to see them get on that bus and head on down the road because I was so excited to finally have time to myself. So when they approached me on that, and I prayed about it, talked to my husband and waited for him. And then when he kind of gave me the go ahead and said, I think this is a good idea, then we started homeschooling. I did, however, make my kids finish their school year at school. And then we started the following fall with homeschooling.
And mine was kind of, my kids were in a Christian school, and my husband had 6 months of a training that he had to do. And I thought I would just finish him out through the year since I had already paid for all the books, and I just homeschooled him for the rest of that year. And then we moved here to Hawaii, where I just continued to do it. So
I want to point out a quick shout out to Jessica Mast, who says, I miss you guys. We miss you too, Jessica.
Yeah.
So hi to you. So anyway, so I'm curious. Well, go ahead, Wendy.
Okay.
I know you had a question too.
Yeah, all good. So how do you know the curriculum to pick? I've always wondered that. I think that's what's kept me from homeschooling is I don't know how to pick the curriculum, and I'm afraid the curriculum is going to be too hard for me. How do I teach him? You know, what do I do with that?
Yeah, and I've noticed that there's a lot of different curriculums out there.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know what's out there?
Yeah, how do you pick?
Let me go.
go ahead.
Okay. I had good friends when we were in Germany that homeschooled, and they recommended this website called KathyDuffy.com. And she goes through and she reviews all sorts of homeschooling curriculum. I have one child that will sit and write 10 pages, and she's very content writing pages. I have another that would probably rather gouge his eyes out than sit and write. But math, he will fly through math. And so I looked at my kids are different, and so I picked different curriculum based on their the areas that they're good in. And so I did not pick one whole curriculum package. They have a piece from here and a piece from here and a piece from here. And I kind of just mesh it all together. And that seems to be what's working. And some years we try one curriculum and decide, we don't really like that one, and then we'll switch to the next year. Or sometimes there's some curriculum that we have done the entire time that we've been homeschooling, and we've really enjoyed it.
I picked my curriculum because my kids were already going to a Christian school where the curriculum was picked out, and we just continued in that since my children were used to that curriculum. And just this past year, I had switched to a different curriculum for one of my older kids, and I thought it was a bit too easy, so I'm switching him back to the harder one next year.
So is it done online? Is there a curriculum? Do you have to get books? Do you pay for it? How does that work?
I do both. Some of it's online, some of it's in the books. Usually April is the month that I start ordering all of my curriculum, because a lot of places will have discounts in April that we usually like to go through.
And also I do both right now. One's in elementary still, so I send in his paperwork and tests and all that. And then my older one, he does his tests online.
Okay.
So they can keep all the records and have them.
So you're communicating with somebody on the other side that's
Yes.
recording and keeping track of it.
I am.
Okay.
I am. You don't have to. Some do, some don't. I just prefer to.
Is there required testing? Like every 6 months to make sure they're on track? Do you have to go to like the state and test or anything like that?
I do. My kids test every year. Like last year, Levi tested because he was in 4th year in Hawaii, and you have to do that. At certain grade levels, you have to test for your kids. So,
To see that they're on track.
so
And each state is different.
Yeah, each state.
So one state is going to say you have to do this, and another state is going to have to do this, and it depends on the grade. It depends on the state. It's all up to that individual state. When we started in Germany, it's a free for all, really. There's no governing body kind of over the homeschooling, so you can do whatever you wanted.
Okay. So how do you know when you go to each state? How do you find out what the requirements are?
Is it on the school websites, I think?
Yeah, a lot of times you can go to the public school there where online and find out how their homeschooling is done. And then also there's the HD.
Homeschool Legal Defense Association.
Yes.
And they give out tons of information, and you can go to your Hawaii or wherever you're stationed and find out the laws and everything. Yes.
Awesome.
So.
And then does the school liaison, like most posts have a school liaison, is that just for the public school kids, or is that for?
No, it's for homeschooling too. I think it's just when you're maybe have a difficult problem or something, you can go to them. I've never had to. I've always had their number ready if I needed to, but I've never had to go to them for any reason. I usually just get everything online, do what I need to do, and I don't need them. So, or I have their number though.
Do you guys belong to any homeschool groups? Do you ever connect with those? Like, I've seen those. I don't homeschool, so I don't know much about it, but I know there's groups that so they can get together, because I think some of and this is kind of old school thinking about homeschool, is that there's isolation that comes with homeschooling. Now I know both of you, and I know all of your children, and there's definitely not isolation because of all the activities they do. But are there groups that they can plug into? And I've heard of like co-ops where maybe I don't teach math well, so I work with someone else that teaches math, but I do English. Or are there things like that?
Yes, there are homeschool co-ops all over the place. I think every military installation probably has, because homeschooling, it's a community, and you want to see each other succeed, and you want to help each other get your kid the best education that you can. So these moms all come together, and sometimes there's dads too involved. They all come together and they set up the co-ops, and we have done different field trips, things that I would not have normally taken my kids, but because there was a group discount and there was a established activity or something, we tag along and do the field trips. So my kids are not missing out on field trips at all.
They offer field trips and things like that, other ways to socialize and things like that. Awesome.
And then also there's it's CYS and what's the other thing called where they do karate and stuff.
Like MWR.
Oh gosh, I know what you're talking about. It's right here across the street. Oh golly. I think it's through CYS.
It's through CYS.
And,
it's through CYS, and they have homeschool groups where you can they have art classes for homeschoolers. They have art classes. They have other activities that they can do. It's surprising
PE.
some of the things. Oh yeah, PE.
Oh,
that's
nice.
what I was going to say.
Okay.
They have PE where kids meet once a week. And they have a PE class. So, and somebody is over it and teaches it and everything. So,
wow.
So I have a shout out to Miss Tammy here from Rising Arrows.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're saying hello to you. Hey Tammy. Great. And
yes.
Rising Arrows HSLDA has the rules and regulations of all states. Yep. So that's going to be right on there in our comments.
And as a reminder, if you have questions about homeschooling, please feel free to post those now so that we can answer those while we're live on the air. So
I know that, I work with a group called Mahama which is a turtle conservation group. And I know we all the time have homeschool groups come down and we'll do things. How would someone contact, if you wanted to create a field trip or something like that, you just contact them and like normal, like I would if I was in a school, or do you have to do it different because you're homeschool, or how would you contact to get a group down to an event? Would you do it, or would you just wait for the co-op to do it, or?
You could suggest it to the co-op, because usually the co-op has leaders that kind of manage everything. And if you put a suggestion out, and they may kind of give you the lead on that and say, could you make the phone calls? Can you set up all the details and all that?
So just go through it.
I imagine if there's not like a co-op or a group, you could probably start one.
Right.
And you can get a group of people yourself together too. and go down and do something. Or like we did
That's
one.
what
It
I
wasn't
was
Sea
thinking.
Life Park. It was something else where we went and saw dolphins and the kids got to feed them and stuff like that. But we had got our own group together.
There you go. I think that's what I was asking in a roundabout
Maybe
way.
just friends, friends
Yeah.
that that
Yep.
homeschool. Or you
Perfect.
just ask each one, and you usually have so many people that you're allowed to take with you. So.
So how does homeschooling then fit in? As military families, we're pretty transient. We move every few years, and when I send my kids off to school, even though they're nervous the first day, first few days, whatever, they're not new very long. So it's a way for them making friends. How do your kids make friends as you're getting connected and from when you move so much? And how does homeschooling fit in with your military lifestyle?
All right, there's a lot there.
How do they? We kind of talked about groups, or do they get lonely from being home all day?
I don't think mine don't. No.
They're busy doing school.
They are busy doing school. However, my daughter is actually babysitting this morning. She has a regular babysitting job in the morning, a couple days a week. My son mows lawns during the day also. So they're not lonely. My son is in Boy Scouts. He's in Civil Air Patrol. Both of my kids go to youth group twice a week. They're very involved, and they have quite a group of friends.
Yeah.
Cool.
Same here. Friends around the neighborhood. My little one has friends, next door neighbors, and all that. But they'll do their schoolwork during the day, and then they might have their Pacific Club at night that they go to during the week.
So what's Pacific Club?
Oh, I'm sorry. Pacific Club is through the chapel, and it is a teenage group of youth that get together and they have Bible studies and also have a lot of fun.
Now that's true. That's a good point too, because homeschoolers or private school kids can get involved in the same types of organizations that all the other youth groups and Awanas and other kids groups and stuff. So that's how do your kids feel about homeschooling? Do they like homeschooling, dislike it?
Well, when I let them sleep till 9 o'clock in the morning, they love it.
Yeah, it's such a nice thing with the flexibility of schedule,
Yes,
isn't it?
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing. That's awesome.
And they and also my son is involved in he has music. He has practice twice a week. And so they're busy. My kids are kept busy, so
Absolutely.
it's fun.
Okay. So with moving around, then how does that work? What if you have a mid-year move or an unexpected PCS? How do you handle that and homeschool?
Ours was great. When we were leaving our last assignment, we were at Fort Belvoir before we came here, and we left the beginning of November, and we didn't have to be here till middle of December. My grandparents had passed away. Both of them had passed away that year, and their house was empty. So we went back to New York and stayed at my grandparents' house, and we spent a month visiting family, and we did homeschooling there. I had an extra bag with our luggage, and so we just homeschooled in the midst of visiting family and having all kinds of just a good time. And then we've always homeschooled in the hotels. We will figure it out. If we're PCSing in the middle of the school year, we have all of our books. We just get all of our stuff out and we homeschool right in the hotel to kind of give them something to do so they're not bored also while we're moving. And then so they don't get too far behind, because I like to get done early. We are planning on getting done this month with homeschooling. So we are big on let's get it done a little earlier than the public school kids, because we're actually planning a very big family vacation next month while the public school kids are still in school, when we have better prices on the vacations, because it's cheaper to do it when the public schools are still in session.
So that brings up a good point. You do summer. You take the summer off.
Oh,
So
yes.
you kind of mirror the calendar somewhat of public schools.
Now, is there a requirement? Like, does the state set the dates that you're supposed to homeschool?
No.
Or?
They just give you have to do it in usually so many days.
Yep.
You have to do 100 and depends on what state.
What state?
But like I do 170 days worth of school days, actual days. So I think you're given 180 days, but you can take 10 days of like field trips and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I would then ask, what are some of the pros and cons?
I was
of
just going to ask
homeschooling?
that. I was like, all right, this all sounds great, but yeah.
So let's get real here.
Yes,
So
you
what's some of the
say.
pros and cons?
All right, now, what do we hear? Yeah.
So I did touch on one of the pros is being able to vacation whenever you want to. A couple years ago, before we were PCSing here to Hawaii, we got together with my husband's family and we rented a beach house. And it was the last week of off season where the weather was great. It was in April and we got it really cheap. We got this beautiful house really cheap. So we just work around the prices of vacations. I would say about the cons, going back to my first time homeschooling, my husband was deployed. He came home from a deployment. Our whole life had changed. The kids were no longer at school. They were home all the time. He had just come home from a deployment and there was not a lot of him and I together. We didn't have a chance to, I probably did it wrong. If I could go back, I would have changed things a little bit, but we do miss out on a little bit of that just husband and wife time because the kids are always around. But now that they're older, we just leave them at home and we go and do our own thing. So it's kind of nice. But I think the biggest con for me is because I'm an introvert and I need quiet and I need to be alone to recharge. The fact that they're always around is a little difficult at times.
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes when you're constantly telling them, get back to school, get back to school, because they want to take their breaks and they want to take them long. and it just, that kind of thing is like, hurry, get back to school, get back to school. But I'd have to say those are the cons about it all. So it's just, I have boys, so you know how boys are in school. So like some people don't have this problem. Some people, their kids are very goal focused. They get done with their work that day and they're good to go. But I have boys and you have to constantly get on them to get back to school.
So my daughter is very goal focused and will sit there at the table. My son, he does one subject and then he rides his bike around the neighborhood and then he comes in and he might do a second subject and then he'll go out and play basketball for a little while. So he has to break it up. And I just understand that's how his homeschooling day has to look for him. And so I just kind of make adjustments on that.
Just kind of the reason you homeschool. Because he probably learns better that way.
Yes.
I mean, really, seriously, that's a learning style for him. And if he had to sit class after class after class, it wouldn't benefit him. So, yeah.
So in the military, you know, especially if you live on post or something, do you feel that, how do you feel that fits in with others around you? Are there other families that homeschool, or are you kind of the only ones? How's that look?
I think it's becoming more popular. You go to the commissary during the day and there's a ton of homeschooling kids. And I've actually taught my kids, I'm at that point now where I'm ready just to give them the credit card and their ID card and the grocery list and just send them in there because they know the deal. And so I take my kids everywhere because I want them to be independent and be able to do all this stuff. And yeah, we see homeschooling kids all the time out and about.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
How do your families, your extended families, feel about it?
Mine's okay with it. They understand why I'm doing it right now and all. I mean, when we move back to the mainland, if we do, I don't know where we're going next, but if we do, I'm planning on sending them back to school. But for now, this is what we're doing. This is the best thing for us right now. So, yeah.
So we have some family members that are very encouraging. Some family members that want to question my kids' intelligence by quizzing them in different areas. And it's kind of aggravating and my kids know what's going on. But I think it's become just so much more popular now that it's not looked at as like a black cloud over homeschooling kids anymore. People are realizing that they are socialized and they're good kids and they're highly intelligent and they have a lot of interests, and homeschooling gives them more time to explore all those interests too. Yeah.
So are your husbands supportive of homeschooling, and do they ever get involved in that?
Yes, mine is. Mine's supportive, and if I need help, especially with my older one, because he's getting into high school and all those kind of subjects, and he'll look over his papers and stuff like that. So he is a big help for me.
My husband's supportive, although he's very distracting when he's home. For the kids, he likes to play music and things like that. So, but he is very supportive.
what is your time commitment? What is the time that you put in to homeschooling each week?
Me? I don't put in a lot of time at all. I would say maybe an hour a day myself, if that even.
Is that when you're directly like instructing and teaching, or is that like organizing?
Probably more organizing and checking their work, but my kids are also middle school and high school, so most of it is self-led. They're not elementary where I'm sitting there teaching them their letters and sitting there while they're reading and things like that.
One of my elementary does video school, so he has a teacher in front of him who's teaching him, and anytime he needs help or something like that, I'll be there to help him. And then mine is kind of just correcting his work at the end of the day and getting ready for his work the next day, because you kind of have to do that with your elementary student, and you have to have everything set for him, and that's what I do. And it probably takes maybe couple hours. He takes more of my time, I think, than my older one. My older one's more where he does it himself, and I just check over his work at the end of the day. So, or any little experiments or something that he does, I'll watch out for him. But other than that, it's not too much time, but I do like to be there when my kids are homeschooling, so that I am making sure they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing.
Well, did you have any other questions?
No, I think that's been really informative. I've considered it. Maybe I'm considering it more now. I love the flexibility, and I love that, like you said, it's just cheaper to vacation when the kids are in school, and there seems like so many pluses. And that's not even getting into public school systems and not even tackling that subject. But yeah, great information.
So anything in closing that you would want to tell our viewers? What would be your best homeschooling tip?
What works for you is not going to work for your neighbor. Follow your heart. These are your kids. You love them more than anybody else. You want to see them succeed more than anyone else. You kind of pick through the advice that people give you, because it's not always constructive advice. But just remember that you're the one that loves your kids the most. And none of us parents want to see our kids fail. So we do try to we want to see them succeed.
I think one thing I've had to learn is just follow whatever you feel like you need to do for that time. Maybe you just need to do it for a small amount of time for your child. And if that's so, it'll be okay. They're still going to learn, and they're still going to be okay in life. If you go through that just 6 months or something and you can't do it, or you tried it out for a little bit. So it'll be all right.
Like, do you happen to know if there's any issues if you've homeschooled your kids and say for a season you want to put them into a private or a public schools? Is there any issues with, have you experienced that? Do you know if there's been any issues? Or
there's not been any issues on my end. No,
not on my end.
But I have heard some issues with people. So I've heard with high school here in Hawaii, they won't accept homeschool credits or whatever you might call them if they're going into a public school here, where I've heard that the student had to like redo a lot of things at the school and go through summer school just to fit into Hawaii's public school system. So, and their credits and all for high school. Yes. And I just heard that not too long ago with someone. So they had a really hard time switching over.
So you definitely want to check into the state laws and regulations.
Yes, definitely.
Probably something like Homeschool Legal Defense Association can help.
They can.
Organization, right? And keeping all your records. Do you keep records?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yes, definitely.
Yep.
So, well, that's it for today. What are your best homeschool tips and advice for our followers? We would love it if you would post that below this video, and that would then enter you for AWN swag. If your name is drawn, then we would share your tip with our followers. You can help other military families, and we will contact you and let you know you've won so we can get your mailing address. Well, thank you, Tammy, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
And for sharing your experiences with homeschooling your kiddos.
Thank you for watching and for your comments and questions. Did you enjoy this video today? We would love it if you would like and share it with your friends.
Mark your calendars for our next AWN Table Talk on Friday, April 27th. When the teens take over, oh dear, when the teens take over Table Talk in celebration of the month of the military child, we'll hear from some very special kids about how they view and live military life. Have a topic you'd like us to cover in the future? Leave a comment below and let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
And are you PCSing this summer? Check out our newly updated Post with the Most series, each highlighting an Army installation in surrounding communities. You may even be able to find out some things about the schools and homeschooling, that type of thing, housing. We even have restaurant recommendations on there, so check it out.
Yeah.
That's important. Nail salons, hair salons. That's one of the first things I check out. I gotta find a place to have my hair done.
Yep.
Check it out on ArmyWifeNetwork.com.
We are your interactive empowerment for Army Wives by Army Wives. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Have a great week.